Welcome back in, everybody, to Thursday's edition of Birds 365. A lot of excitement in the air right now, especially I know for me. I'm sure everybody in the chat is feeling that excitement as well. The football season is here, everybody. Thursday, September 5th. The season kicks off tonight. So great stuff there. Let me thank some of our newest member. We got a new member, Johnny Mac. Ross and Found becomes a new member, officially entered in to the Saquon Barkley jersey giveaway. Thank you for your support of the channel, my man. We appreciate that very much. So thanks for being here, Johnny Mac. A lot of excitement, as I mentioned. John, how you feeling as we prepare to launch into the football season here on September 5th? 157-day run, Johnny Mac, until the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's good. I just want relevancy, and the Eagles are going to be relevant. So that, to me, the last thing you want to do is enter a season where you're covering a team that has no chance, no relevance, no. And there's a lot of teams like that, and that becomes a slog and more difficult. The Eagles are going to be good. It's just a matter of how good, really.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening tonight. Tonight's going to be a good game. I'm excited for that one. Let's get to our super chat, Johnny Mac. A big one from our man, James Carver. James, thank you, brother, for your support. Your support of the channel does not go unnoticed. We appreciate you, as always, for being here and supporting us. James Carver says, J-Mac, can you at some point do a masterclass on IDL interior defensive line, especially shades, NT versus 3-tech, because people think they have the same roles and want to see JD and even JC scream upfield every play. OCs would love JD to do that and run all day. Nose tackles don't make Pro Bowl via sacks. It's a great point, James Carver. John has dove into it many times before.
Yeah, I feel like I have, but nobody listens. So,
we did that masterclass. I don't know if James Carver was here that day, but it is something, John, with a bigger audience now with the season. Obviously, more people watch the show during the season than in the off season. So it is something we should get into, and maybe we'll do it here in the second hour because.
Yeah, a lot of times I don't, because John mentioned that, John Stolness, and,
right.
I don't even push back with guests too much because I'm at the point where, it is what it is. And Bick, I think having Bick around helps because Vic tries to explain the difference. Like he'll explain the difference between corner, and he had a back and forth with one reporter about corner and nickel, and he said, no, it's different positions. Well, they're both cornerbacks. No, it's different positions. Same thing with nose tackle versus 3 technique, 4 eye. Different positions. But what clouds the vision a little bit is occasionally you'll have somebody who, because you have to, and that's been one of the narratives. The Eagles don't have a obvious backup to Jordan Davis, and it's going to be Thomas Booker, who's got a little bit more heft in his lower body than some of the other guys. But it'll affect the way the Eagles can play if they don't have Jordan Davis. So very important part of the defense. Appreciate the super chat as always. And a good question. I feel like I've done it a lot. And, Jordan Davis, you want to become Linval Joseph in his prime, or Haloti Nada in his prime, or Vince Wilfork in his prime. Yeah, he's not a sack guy.
Which means what, though, for the people that push the pocket, stop the run, create pressure, open up lanes for the other defensive tackles. Just give us
open up. Well, you want them to tie up multiple blockers so others can make plays. You want them to essentially be a wall against the run in the middle, force force the offense to have one less blocker because you're taking up 2. Keep Nakobe Dean clean. Allow Jalen Carter and Milton Williams room to work as a pass rusher when he's out there. And from the pass rushing perspective, you want a better push, but that's what you want. You want to push. Like I remember talking to my buddy Damo. He's like, he's so gifted, you could put him outside. I'm like, no, you can't. maybe he is athleticism wise, but you know, it's like those edge rushers. There's some physical gifts that you need. Jalix Hunt as a developmental player being a perfect example of 'em. But I'm talking about the big time edge rushers, the Nick Bosa's of the world, the Max Crosby's of the world, the Myles Garrett, most notably of the world, Hassan Reddick that you got to see, and maybe even the Jets will get to see. We'll see how that shakes out. But um, those guys, it's not just about athleticism and speed. They work tirelessly to, get their technique work and their hand work and set up different tackles for different pass rushing moves. Can't be a one trick pony from that perspective. And just lop a guy out there because he's physically gifted. I mean, that's not what Jordan Davis has ever done. Just let him be a nose tackle. And if he becomes Haloti Ngata in his prime, you're going to be very happy. You might not know it, but trust me, the defense is going to be successful.
I'll tell you who else will be very happy. All the other guys on that defensive line will be very happy.
Yeah. And you might see 2.5 sacks. You might see 4 sacks on a big year. And you might go, oh, he's the 13th pick. He's got to get 10 sacks. No, he doesn't. That's not what he's here for.
Conversely, Jordan Davis, or not Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter.
That's what Jalen's here for. Yeah.
Right.
That's what you hope, Jalen. Now, it's always tough for interior defensive linemen to get double digits, but he's capable of it.
Yeah, he is. Especially if Jordan Davis does that role, right? I mean, if he takes up 2 blockers, it's almost like the potential of this D line is scary good. If Jordan Davis can eat up multiple blockers and take up that middle of the field like we're hoping he can, and then you leave Jalen Carter, he's basically impossible to stop if you don't double team him. You still have another Milton Williams out there. You still have your edge rushers. I mean, the potential of the D line really is crazy good.
Yeah, and I think it's deeper than people realize, because I think Milton's a good player, and this is a big year for him. Obviously, contract year. I think he's betting on himself. Still waiting. There's a couple days. The Eagles tend to like to do that one extension before the start of the season. So who knows? Keep an eye on that. With Milton Williams and Kenny Gainwell would be the 2 most notable, but we'll see how that shakes out. Both guys probably want to bet on themselves a little bit. And from the case of Milton, there's going to be an obvious opportunity. Moro Ajomo's got some talent inside as well. So you have that perspective. And then the edge rushers. I think, one guy nobody talks about is Patrick Johnson. I think when we talk about, that's the thing. Like if you see Nakobe, like he had Liz-Frank surgery for people that don't know. So there's a long time that he couldn't do anything lower body wise. He was in a rollabout, and then he graduated to crutches, and then he ultimately graduated to a walking boot, and then finally got to ditch everything. He is so much bigger in the upper body now because that's all he was doing during this early rehab, and it showed up on the field. He was much more physical. I think people were surprised how physical he was during training camp. He was the Eagles' most physical player, and he's always thought of this undersized guy. So he really remade his body, and so did Patrick Johnson. And we'll see how it shakes out on Friday night, but I think Patrick Johnson might be the Eagles' 4th best pass rusher, not Nolan Smith. Now, I think Nolan's going to get every opportunity, but Patrick looked more consistent to me in practice. But as Vic will say, practice is practice.
Just looking at it from the other side of the other point of view, I mean, we talk about how good that 5-man front can be for the Eagles. If you're Matt LaFleur, how do you mitigate that? Is it line up more receivers? What do you do to kind of mitigate that rush? Because I think if you are the other team and you're trying to get to the Eagles defense, one of the things you got to do is, lower the impact of the defensive line. How do you do that if you're an offense?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the weakness of the Packers' offense is their offensive line. It's typically been very good over the years, but David Bakhtiari's had the injuries and he's gone finally. I don't know, maybe 4 or 5-time All-Pro. He was a great player. They lost Runyon, John Runyon's kid as well. To have I would say Jenkins. I forget his first name. It's like Elgin or Elton, but whatever. He's
Like
their
Elgton,
best.
Elgton or something like that.
Yeah, he's their best offensive lineman. Josh Myers is okay at center. Rasheed Walker's below average, I would say, at left tackle. So, you want to see something from Zach Tom's okay at right tackle. And then I joked about it. The Eagles won't admit Mekhi Becton is starting at right guard. He is. And the Packers won't say who they're starting at right guard. Could be Jordan Morgan, could be Sean Ryan. So either way, Jalen Carter's got a chance to make a big impact on this game. That's where the Eagles have to win the game because they have an advantage with their defensive front versus the Packers' offensive line.
Yeah, which is going to be interesting because I think that means a lot of, quick releases for Jordan Love, and it's going to put some pressure on those linebackers and the corner and the secondary. So we'll see how they can rise up to the occasion. One more super chat on this topic. I don't want to move on without it. Prince, thank you, brother. Appreciate your support as always. Another one of our big fans. So we appreciate you being here, Prince. You're the best, man. He says, if Jordan Davis and Carter can demand double teams, everyone would be happy. The extra blocks were necessary to keep in, and the skill players will be able to thrive. Mr. PFF is right. Cheers. Smart take. Prince, appreciate you, man. Exactly. I think you bring up
I'm always right, Prince. You should know that.
Come on, now. Prince. You know better than that. One more super chat here before I get to Carver's next one. Ross and Found, who just became a member as well. Ross, thank you for becoming a member. Reminder to everybody, we are giving away the Saquon jerseys all season. So if you want to become a member, now is a good time to do it before the game tomorrow. We appreciate all the support of the channel. Ross says John is one of the best, even if he isn't an AEW fan.
Oh, come on, Ross and Found. Hey, first of all, for those who don't know, I love Tony Khan. So, I mean, there's one owner in this league that I can get in contact with pretty much any time, and that's it. So I actually root, but at that, I pride myself on a objectivity, and it's been a bad product. I love the guy. I root for him. I hope he turns it around. It's been a bad product, and that has strained our relationship somewhat. But I'm not going to lie to the guy. Too many people lie to the guy because he's got a lot of money. And I told him flat out, I said, dude, you're listening to the wrong people. It is a shitty product right now. But I digress. I'm on a tangent.
Johnny Mac, we love your objectivity. Good take there. We appreciate it, brother. James Carver, one more super says, thanks for hitting even longer than expected, J-Mac. People just make me question when they say things like that almost immediately in critique of Eagles D. James, thanks for the support, man. We appreciate the question. You dropped $50. Of course, we're going to hit on it. And I do think it's a good point, man. We're coming into the season, and not everybody has the right expectation on Jordan Davis. So I think you bring up a really good question, and it's great to educate the fans as John loves to do, as we love to do here on Birds 365. We always say we want to make sure our viewers are the most educated Eagles fans in the country or in the world, really, because we have fans from all over. So that's the goal. Thank you, James, for the question. Another super chat here, Johnny Mac. Thanks, everybody, for the support today. Game week, everybody. We're as jacked up as all of you guys. Alexander Harris. Good morning, Alexander. Nice first name, my friend. Me and you share the same first name. Good morning, guys. How do you guys feel about Zach starting at the other linebacker spot? And do you feel one of the younger guys should have gotten a shot? It's a good question, Alexander. He's never been an off-ball linebacker, Zach Bond. John, what's your answer to that?
Well, he has, but he hasn't done it a lot.
Right.
I'm interested. That's probably the most interested I am on the defense and see how it's going to unveil itself on Friday night as Zach Bond, because I think, and this is just not me saying it, not me reporting it, just my speculation. I think he's trying to copy what he did in Miami with Van Ginkel. Um, and that's a little bit of a different position than what the Eagles have been using, just a traditional weak side linebacker. If that's the case, I get it completely. Because Zach's it's more like a hybrid edge rusher off ball linebacker role, and Van Ginkel was tremendous at it. Um, I don't think Zach Baldwin's going to be that, but in theory, at least from a trait standpoint, he could better mimic that role than, say, Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who has mainly played weak side in camp, in his first camp. Ben has played more Mike. And
What about Devin at that position? Like, if I project ahead to week 5, is it still going to be the Kobe?
let me just say this about Devin White. Sell your Devin White stock. Get over it and sell your stock. That's my right.
Luckily,
my,
I'm not a stockholder because I do this show every day with you.
And, again, barring a complete collapse from N'Kobe or injury, and by the way, that's possible. I'm not saying he can't get another opportunity because injuries happen every day. But if everything goes as planned, sell that stock. No, he's not going to play weak side linebacker. He's going to be a backup. And that's where he should be if you're going to keep him. And, what's interesting, Emmanuel Acho is finally putting out some tape about some of the issues, and people can check him out on Twitter.
As usual, John, you're months ahead of
Well, the guy's not instinctive, and our buddy, again, it's I don't know. They weren't watching Tampa Bay tape if they were excited about Devin White.
If you're a listener on Birds 365, you are well aware. And even if you were mad at Johnny Mac for saying it, deep down you knew. Those who know. So good. Thanks for everybody for being here. John, great breakdown as always. One more super from Prince. Yes, Mr. PFF, you're correct. My bad. Love this show. Appreciate you, Prince.
Actually, Prince, you should get PFF credit because they were trying to tell you that Devin was not the best player in the world. They were trying to tell you. You didn't listen.
Good stuff, John. Let's move into a preview of the game. And to do that, we have a super that's directly on par with what we were going to go. I was going to start with the defensive side and how the Eagles can slow down this Packers offense with those receivers, with Jordan Love, with Josh Jacobs at running back, a spotty offensive line, but, people are expecting them to get better. Matthew Halpin checks in his first ever super chat. Matthew, thank you, man. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your super chat. JM, can you give your matchup assessment for Huff? I like it, Matthew. Good question, man. Johnny Mac, a lot of expectation on Bryce Huff coming into the year. What do you think he can do here in game 1?
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for Bryce Huff to show right away he can be a good pass rusher in this defense. Typically Bryce is going to line up on the left side more than not, and Zach Tom is probably their best tackle, but they'll flip guys to take advantage. Vic will do that, and Rasheed Walker's their left tackle, who's not very good. I would say below average NFL tackle. So whether it's Josh Sweat or Bryce Huff, and I think they'll both get opportunities. I think they have to take advantage of that matchup. And I wouldn't be surprised if you get a 2-sack day from Bryce Huff and everybody's really excited about him on Saturday morning. And then when you get to games where the tackles are better, you might have to temper some of that enthusiasm. But I think this is a game where he's got an opportunity to make some plays. Obviously, it's going to hinge on getting Green Bay in the 3rd and long. But if they can do that on occasion, I think he's got a chance to excite some people.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm excited for Bryce Huff. And we just coming off the breakdown of what we just did on the defensive line and talking about that Packers O line, it does seem like it could be a feast day if this defensive line can get the pressure up the middle like they, like we're hoping they can. Could be a big day for Bryce Huff. So we'll see what they're able to do. John, on the further on the defensive side of the football, we talked about how important this D line is, especially in this game. How about the linebackers in the secondary? What's the game plan to slow down this offense? I'm sure Matt LaFleur knows he's got to get past that D line. He's got to he's got to mitigate the rush from Davis and Carter and all those guys. So if he's got Jordan Love getting the ball at him 2 seconds, how do you handle that as the linebackers?
I mean, it's a tough matchup from that perspective. And that's what I said. I mean, Matt LaFleur's obviously, it's pretty obvious where he's going to game plan, and he's going to try to take advantage of the Eagles linebackers and slot corner situation. Number one, I think that's going to be the goal. And with I'm sure when Watson is out there, which is rare, but when he's out there, they always try to take advantage of some deep shots because he's really difficult to deal with. Really difficult to deal with. He's always hurt. The problem for the Eagles is he's not hurt yet. So that is a matchup I'm concerned with. And then Josh Jacobs is sort of the unknown. Like I'm one of the few, evidently, who think the Packers got worse at running back. And I think that will help the Eagles when it comes to, because obviously every defense wants to get into 3rd and long, but even more so with Vic Fangio, because that's where Vic shines, 3rd and long situations, where he will just bring out a bunch of stuff to affect the quarterback. And that's, people will get excited by that because that's when he's going to blitz. He blitzes he blitzes when he wants to. And what he wants to is when it's 3rd and long to get off the field. He doesn't want to blitz when he has to. And that means, if you're not having success and you feel the pass rush isn't getting home and you feel a need to blitz, that's when you're in trouble. And if the Packers are 3rd and short a bunch, it's probably going to be a tough night for the defense.
You have no doubt about it, John. One more super chat here. Another one from Alexander Harris. Thank you, man, for your support this morning. Great questions, too. All of our guys have great questions this morning. I think everybody's super jacked up for this game. So if you do have questions for John on the game, get them in now because we have no guest this hour, too. So we're going to be breaking down the game here for the next 36 minutes and change before the show is wrapped for the day. Alexander Harris says, how concerned are we with the pass rush once we get past Huff, Sweat, and Brandon Graham? I think you're talking about depth, Alexander Harris. Johnny Mac, what do you think of the depth at the pass rush?
Well, I think there's enough to where somebody will work. Maybe it's Nolan Smith. Hopefully for the Eagles, that would be their best case scenario. It's Nolan Smith. But if it's not Nolan Smith, it might be Patrick Johnson. If it's not Patrick Johnson, it might be Jalen Hunt down the road. I
got a feeling it's going to be by week 8. I think it's going to be Patrick Johnson.
It might be.
I got a weird feeling.
Also, where big, I've been talking about this all off season. This is Brandon Graham's last year. And I think everybody has gone down the route of, well, he's going to play less incremental. I think he's going to play more. And I said it. And Vic basically agreed with that. He said, yeah, I told him, be ready to play. There's no pitch count on him if that's what you're asking. So I think Brandon's going to play more because there's no need to keep that gas in the tank. This is it for him. So I think that's going to help his ability to be on the field more. And I think you got 3 darts with Nolan Smith and Patrick Johnson and Jalen Hunt. Now, early, I think Jalen is going to be inactive. But talking about down the road, the overriding picture. And Nolan will get the first opportunity, but he's got to prove he can do it.
Yep, no doubt. We'll see how it plays out. Like I said, I got a feeling it's going to be Patrick Johnson, and I got a feeling Jalix Hunt is going to have a bigger year than everybody is anticipating. I think he's going to be a good player this year. I don't know why. I just have that feeling inside that I think he's going to be
You
better
got to
than
play
expected.
first, though.
You got to play,
Some
no
guys
doubt.
got to
Yeah.
fail before he's going to get an opportunity, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt. So,
Short term, not long term.
yep, no doubt. Good stuff there, Johnny Mac. John, the one thing I asked about earlier was the Keely Ringo. You know, if he might start in this game, just because when you look at those Packers receivers, they're young, but they're big and they're physical. You know, and that's a mismatch for Isaiah Rodgers, regardless of how good he is in coverage. What do you think the game plan is at corner after Quinion and Slay?
Yeah, I'm with you. You know, Isaiah's dealing with a bit of a hand injury that cropped up, so he's been limited in practice. Maybe that gets Kaylee Ringo back into the conversation. Or maybe, you know, Vic says all the time that he'll change from week to week and, you know, based on the game plan and the opposition. And maybe this is an opportunity to say, all right, maybe Isaiah Rodgers is better equipped, as you said, as a coverage player, but you look at Christian Watson that's 6'4 plus, and say, I'd rather have the size out there.
Who's going to cover him, John? Forget Keely Ringo for a second. Who's going to
Well,
cover him
that's
at all?
that he's very difficult to cover
I
when
mean,
he's out there.
good
You know,
Lord.
Dobbs is 6'2". Reed is more, you know, 5'11-ish. So he's a little bit more a very good player, but from a depth standpoint, from a just a measurable standpoint, a little bit easier to deal with. And Wicks is over 6 foot as well. So of their top 4 receivers, 3 of them are size mismatches for Isaiah Rodgers, and that's something that Matt LaFleur is certainly, I'm sure, taking notice of.
Yeah, we'll see what the game plan is. I do think it's a tough matchup. I think this Packers team is good. I don't think they're slept on. I think people realize they're good, but I think people don't want to buy into them fully yet. And I think they're going to be good, man. I think they have a good general manager. I think they regroup, you know, as well as anybody in the NFL. You talk about you talk about it all the time. Their 35-year run of Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm not saying
Unbelievable.
Jordan Love's going to be
It's
that,
unbelievable.
but
Well,
I mean,
he's
he
already
looks
not.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the start was pretty impressive. I'll say that. But yeah, their quarterback play. I always say they have the most spoiled fan base in the country because they don't know how the other half lives. Looking for quarterbacks, trying to find quarterback. They went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now it's Jordan Love. I mean, it has been an unbelievable run for them at the quarterback position, and
No
they're
doubt.
spoiled because of it.
Yeah, no doubt. So I think they're good. I think they're good. I think they're a good team. I'm not crowning them at RMP says everybody's crowning the Packers too early. I agree. I mean, look, we got to see it again. But you know, RMP, I will say this. Everybody thinks about what happened most recently. It's a what have you done for me lately league. And the Packers just destroyed the Cowboys in the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Eagles went 1-6 down the stretch. So I think that's part of it where it's like, you know, that's factored into it. But I do think they're a solid team. I think Jordan Love's going to be a good quarterback in this league. So definitely is going to be a good battle. We'll see what ends up happening. John, let's flip over to the Eagles' offensive side of the ball. If you're Kellen Moore, what's your approach in this game? How do you attack this Packers defense?
Well, the beauty of Kellen Moore is I think it's more of a Jeff Hafley issue than a Kellen Moore issue. I mean, that's the whole point of the Eagles offense and the way they set it up. They have no weakness on paper. Their biggest weakness is Mekhi Becton at right guard. You know, Dallas Goedert's going to play. We know we're all ready for the Saquon show. Everybody's hyping that up. You're better at running back. You add Jahan Dotson at receiver, and he'll be limited from a playbook standpoint, at least a little bit, but still much more of a playmaking aspect. Um, Even their depth players, Kenny Gainwell, Grant Calcaterra, they think can catch the football really well. And the offensive line overall remains top 5 in the NFL as a floor. Not a ceiling, as a floor, top 5 in the NFL. There's no excuse not to have success offensively with this team. And the Packers have some good players. They're up front. They're good. Kenny Clark's probably their best player, one of the more underrated players in football. And he'll be difficult to deal with for Mekhi Becton, I would imagine, certainly as he makes the transition. They have very good edge rushers in Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith. But Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata tend to shut guys like that down. Their linebackers are weak, very similar. Eric Wilson is scheduled to start at middle linebacker. Quay Walker, kind of a bigger name, Georgia guy, but really hasn't performed. And then Isaiah McDuffie, when they have another guy out there, not good at linebacker. And then the secondary, they have 2 good players. Jair Alexander is one of the best press cover corners in football. Xavier McKinney is a player the Eagles desperately wanted, playmaking safety, very good player. But they have some issues as well. Eric Stokes isn't the best complimentary corner at this stage of his career.
He was a first-round pick a couple years ago, and then what happened? He missed a year for injury. Is that how it went with him?
He was he was very late first-round pick. So that's one of those things where it's like same thing with Nolan Smith here. Like, what's the difference between 30 and 33? Well,
Right.
you're a first-round pick. You're not a first-round pick. So that always, yeah. I mean, so he'll forever be labeled as a first-round pick in Green Bay. Hasn't lived up to those expectations just yet, but obviously he's got some talent. So does Walker's got some talent. At linebacker, he was a first-round pick, but hasn't lived up to that. So, they have some athleticism, but overall, and that defense was atrocious when they were trying to play the Vic Fangio scheme with Joe Barry. It was bad. And a lot of uncertainty with Jeff Hafley coming back from college. Was NFL DB's coach and then went to college and was the head coach at Boston College. Now he's coming back to be a defensive coordinator. So a lot of uncertainty, but I would not want to be Jeff Hafley and try to game plan for the Eagles. For Kellen Moore, it's about keeping everybody happy.
For your first game, Jeff Hafley's got to go up against this offense. That's an uphill battle for him, man, no doubt.
Yeah.
Interesting hire though. Like, where did he come from? Head coach of ball. I know where he came from, but I mean,
yeah, it's a long time
cycle,
Well, he was, a long-time DB's coach in the NFL before he went back to college. So, it's not like he hasn't been around the NFL. But most recently, he was DB's coach in Tampa, Cleveland, San Francisco. And then he went back to college to be the defensive coordinator at Ohio State. And then he got the head coaching job at BC. And now he's back in the NFL. So it's not like he's not aware of the NFL. It's not like it's that out of, he
gotcha.
So, but he's never been a defensive coordinator in the NFL. So from that standpoint, it certainly is new.
So if the matchups are Kellen Moore versus Hafley from a coordinator perspective, I'm going to give the advantage there to Kellen Moore. But on the other side, if you got LaFleur versus Fangio,
well, that's a heavyweight matchup right there.
Who you got there is the advantage. I might take LaFleur. I got to be honest.
No, I'm always going Vic, but
all right.
LaFleur is a guy I say it all the time. I admit I didn't give him a ton of credit when he first got the Green Bay job because I
Yeah,
think
because it was he and Aaron Rodgers.
yeah, that's on autopilot. He's letting Rodgers and he won 13 straight. He won 13, 13, 13. Had the best 3-year record in NFL history for a head coach. And then they took the step back in Rodgers' final season in Green Bay. They won 8 games, and they only won 9 games last year, and they snuck into the playoffs, and then but they were playing well and destroyed Dallas, and should have beat San Francisco, to be honest. So, I have given him a little bit more credit over the past 2 years, ironically, because he's won 8, 9 games versus 13, 13, 13. Because I think Zander and I could have won 13 with those Packers teams. But yeah, I think he's a good coach. And obviously, he's from the scheme that everybody wants to run offensively. The Shanahan group, Mike McDaniel, Sean McVay, they all coached on the same staff back in the day in Washington that I talked about yesterday. And they all run a similar scheme, and it's difficult to deal with. But I think Vic is great.
No doubt. I want to thank everybody for being here, John. Big crowd here today. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you guys hit that like button if you're enjoying the content. Sorry, it appears everybody in the neighborhood is getting their lawn cut this morning. So I'm muting it out. Hopefully it's not bothersome to everybody listening. John, 2 more super chats. Everybody's been, like I said, has been tremendous this morning. Abe says, what's the penalty count for Eagles and Packers? I don't know. Week 1,
boy.
Abe. Might be a lot.
I guarantee there's going to be a couple on the kickoffs. I guarantee that. But yeah. Who knows? Ron Torbert is the referee. So a lot if people want to do their research into referees and what I usually get that sent to me. It hasn't been sent to me yet. I don't know. But Ron Torbert seems to be not popular, but nobody's popular. I don't pay attention to officials. I got to be honest with you. Control what you can control, the old NFL. You will never hear me complain about officials, ever. Ever. They're human beings. They're going to make mistakes. Adversity, either deal with it or don't.
No doubt. One more super chat, John. And this is a good question. And James almost read my mind because I wanted to ask you about this coming into the game from the offensive philosophy. James Carver checks in and says, J-Mac, I almost always, Anias aside initially, agree with you. By the way, James Carver, Johnny Mack seems to be right on that. So take your loss there, Carver. Almost always agree with you. But increasingly, I think Eagles may run to set up pass instead of vice versa. Your thoughts?
No, unless they're going to tie Jeopardy down in Brazil. You're not going to be happy with that. No, that's not how they build this off. Follow the money, James. And thanks for the super chat. Yeah, I mean, what do they pay AJ? What do they pay Jalen? What do they pay Devontae? Yeah, I mean, they built this team, and Jeopardy's right, by the way, and that's what he wants. He wants the easiest way to win. And I always talk about margin of error. There's a lot of ways you can win, but you want to create the easiest way to win, the greatest margin of error to win. And in the modern NFL, that's to have a high octane passing offense. That's Jeffrey Lurie's philosophy. He's correct. That's how the Eagles are built. That's how they always built, with that in mind. And that will continue. Will they be better equipped to run the football with Saquon than they have been with DeAndre and Miles? A little bit. But by no means is this going to be a run first team.
Good answer there, Johnny Mack. We'll take one more commercial break here. I want to thank everybody for being here. Great crowd, great questions, everybody. Thank you guys for preparing for this game with us here on Birds 365. We are excited to get this thing underway. We've been talking all off season long The dog days of summer are well in our rearview mirror, and the football season is here. Excited for the game tonight, too, by the way. I know we're an Eagles show, but that's a great kickoff to the NFL season, the Chiefs and the Ravens. We touched on it a little bit in the opening segment, so should be a great game tonight. I know everybody in the chat's going to be looking forward to watching that one. So we'll take a commercial break here. We'll come back. We got about 15 minutes left to go after the commercial break on the show. So give us 3 minutes, and we'll be right back on Birds 365. Thanks, everybody.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.